Hi lovelies, Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I've got a little practice for you all about how we can strengthen our downward facing dog. This practice is for beginners and also for well-practiced yogis as well, because there's always new things we can kind of bring in to help tailor the pose to suit our bodies, depending on how we're feeling that day. So I recommend having some wall space at the back of your mat and a couple of blocks maybe as well if you have them. But if you don't have blocks, no worries. You could use a couple of books maybe, but it's not a massive thing today. And this practice is still a flow, so we're not going to be looking at downward facing dog on its own. It's still a kind of full practice where we're going to have a little bit of a warm up, for the shoulders, and also a bit of a cool down at the end. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to start by warming up our wrists. So gently bring the hands down in front of you, coming into a tabletop, and just have a few moments to get the hands used to having a little bit of weight placed down into them. So you might start by shifting the weight front and back, maybe moving side to side. And I would say it's always, always, always key to warm up your wrists before any kind of yoga practice. No end of times have I heard people have been struggling with their wrists, the wrists are getting a little bit tired, and that's all to do with strengthening around that joint, around that area. So even before your yoga practice has started, maybe you're waiting for your teacher to come in, I would be here in tabletop warming up my wrists regardless. Always, always, always. Okay, so maybe we can start turning the fingertips out to the side, shifting the weight from side to side. And as you are doing this, just have a little bit more awareness of pressing down into your fingertips. So you're not just kind of relying onto the heel of the hand. You want to be incorporating these base knuckles here as well and your fingertips. So really the kind of the pad of the hand. And just keep that little weight shifting from side to side. And it's up to you. You can either do this one hand at a time, but you're going to bring one hand to point it back towards you. So fingertips pointing back towards you. If it's too intense on the one hand, stay there, or maybe bring in the other hand as well. And just keeping a little shift of weight front to back. And this doesn't have to be too forceful here. We can keep it fairly mellow, fairly chill, and keep the arms straight if we can. So try not to kind of bend in your elbows. It's a little bit awkward there. Okay. Maybe have one more breath here. Lovely, okay. Gently spin the fingertips around one hand at a time, and then we are going to stay with that one hand. So let's focus on the right hand first of all. Again, you're going to point the fingertips back towards you, but so the back of the hand comes down on towards the mat. And again, shifting the weight forwards and back. You may be able to do this with both hands, but this is kind of, especially if you haven't practiced a lot, this might feel quite weak in your wrist here. So I would maybe advise to do just one hand at a time. And again, keeping the arm nice and straight. And then once you've finished with that hand, we can move on to the other. So you bring the right palm down, flip onto the back of the left palm, fingertips pointing back towards you, and again, little shift of weight front to back. Okay. One more breath with this. And one more exhale. Okay, bring that left palm back down towards the mat. And again, as you bring the palms down, pushing down through the fingertips, pushing down through the base knuckles and the heel of the hand. And let's just start to draw some circles with our shoulders. So it's going to be fairly small circles first of all, just working in one direction. So you might be working clockwise or anti-clockwise first. And then gradually as you go, just start to make those circles a little bit bigger. So gradually the shoulders come a little bit further over your fingertips. So again, we're getting that stretch kind of down the inside of the wrist. And again, it brings that awareness of how much we can press down through the fingertips here. And then let's start that in the other direction. So again, starting small, small circles. And then gradually allowing that to get bigger and bigger. Okay. Fabulous. One more breath here. One more exhale. Beautiful. Okay. Still in our tabletop, we're going to bring in a couple of strength exercises for our wrists. So what you're going to do, you're going to lift the heel of the hand away from the mat, lift the thumb away from the mat, and tap it down. And we just keep going just like that. So the four fingers are down towards the mat. You're just lifting the heels of the hand and both thumbs. And we keep going. As you bring the heels down, try not to slam the heels of the hands down. We keep it kind of lifting up and down. And the shoulders are going to want to come further away from your wrist here. Keep those shoulders as best as you can over your wrist. It's a little bit tricky. Maybe 2 more breaths. Keep it going. 1 more. Beautiful. Okay. Feel free to come sit back on your heels. Give the wrists a little shake out there. Okay, and you might have felt the forearm kind of working there. Again, that's ways we can strengthen up around the wrist. Then we're going to do one more strengthening exercise, and all you're going to do is reach the fingertips up to the sky, so the palms of the hands are facing towards one another, and you're just going to open and close the fist really quickly, as quick as you can. And we keep going for longer than we want to. So you might kind of start to feel this in your forearms pretty much straight away, or there might be a little bit more of a slower build up here. But we keep going, keep going. Have a little bit of awareness of your ribcage here. Make sure you're not taking this too much into a back bend, but just keep opening, closing the fist fast as you can. Okay. Maybe let's go. Let's count down from 10, 9, keep going, keep going. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, or 2, and 1. Beautiful. Gently bring the arms down, shake off the shoulders, maybe shake off the wrists. Okay, so that's our wrist warm up done for now. And let's bring the hands back down towards the mat. Let's bring a little bit more movement into our spine, into our torso. So we're going to move through a little bit of cat and cow. So as we inhale, we drop the belly, we shine the heart forwards, lift it through the tailbone, and see if you can kind of squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you. And as you exhale, tuck the chin down towards the chest, push the ground away, reaching out through the back of the shoulder blades here. And we keep going just like that. Inhale to drop the belly, shine the heart forwards, lifting the tailbone. And exhale, let's come through a curve. And we're moving with our breath here. So the breath is the inspiration behind this movement. So as you come into your inhale, you arch. And as you begin your exhale, it takes you into that curve. Beautiful. So you might be quite familiar with this cat and cow. In similar ways to a downward facing dog, it's always, always, always more or less featured in a typical yoga class. But that still doesn't mean to say that we can kind of breeze through this easily. Have that awareness of what's happening inside your body as you move through this cat and cow. So what's happening in your rib cage as it travels through space, what's happening to your breath. Maybe we're still feeling that kind of little warm up for the wrist here. So maybe as you drop the belly and lift the heart, maybe you can kind of feel that pressure down through your fingertips. Beautiful. Okay, let's maybe take one more full round of breath. One more inhale, drop the belly, lifting the heart. One more exhale, finding your curve. Okay, inhale, come back to your neutral tabletop. And then from here, we're going to bring one elbow down at a time where our palm of the hand is. So as you bring left elbow down, bring it down to where your left palm was. And the same with the right elbow, bring it down where your right palm was. So that's to help making sure we're bringing the elbows down underneath the shoulders. And again, you can check the distance by tapping one bicep at a time. Fingertips are reaching out in front, and then keeping your hips over your knees. Let's start to walk the knees a little bit further back so your shoulders start to come away from over the top of your elbows. And we come into a little puppy dog stretch here. So from here, you may find that the forehead can come meet the mat. It might rest down here. And the hips are still lifted up towards the sky. And this is our puppy dog posture. It's a great modification for your downward facing dog. So perhaps we're not feeling the kind of strength in our downward facing dog, so we can take this instead. And it's still quite a nice shoulder opener here. Still putting light pressure down through the fingertips. Maybe taking one more breath. And one more exhale. Beautiful. So just a reminder, this puppy dog pose again is a modification for our downward facing dog should you ever need it. So whenever a teacher says flow to your downward facing dog, feel free to flow to this instead. Okay. So on your next inhale, gently push down through the forearms, lift the chest ever so slightly back up. Keeping the forearms down towards the mat, but tucking all 10 toes under this time. Push down through the fingertips, lift the elbows away from that and send your bum back towards your heels, sort of like a more active child's pose here. So we're also getting a little stretch down through the soles of the feet. Take a breath here. And then as you exhale, really pushing down through the toes, push down through the fingertips, bum flies straight up towards sky, and we're starting to move into our downward facing dog now. Now, I always say, as you come into a downward facing dog, to keep some movement there. So keep a little bend in the knees, maybe both knees, to really get the belly back towards your thighs. Or you might have a little pedal out through the feet so you can bend one knee and then the other. Okay. So now that we're in our downward facing dog, we're going to work through a little bit of a checklist, starting from our hands, working our way back down towards our feet. So if you need a break at any moment, feel free to come back onto the knees as I talk you through some of the kind of tips and tricks we can bring into our downward facing dog. So let's start with our hands. So again, we're pushing down through the fingertips, pushing down through the base knuckles. And you might feel, especially if you've got limited shoulder mobility here, you might kind of feel like you're a little bit more curved up here and you've really got a lot of weight into the hands here. This is where we can bring in our blocks. So you have a couple of blocks, and especially if the wrists are getting a little bit sore, same again, you bring the hands down towards the blocks, but you tuck the toes under, send bum towards the sky, and that actually helps us take a little bit of the weight, a little bit of pressure away from our hands and down towards our feet. So actually my heels are a lot closer to the ground here. So that's another option you can bring in. Okay. And just making sure if your hands are down towards your mat, spreading the fingertips nice and wide, but not to the maximum. You want to have kind of a little bit of space between the fingertips, but you don't want to kind of be stretching the skin there. Okay, just another thing to be a little bit aware of. Okay, let's take a breath. Take an exhale. And then maybe just have a little experiment with separating the hands a little bit wider and turning the fingertips out towards the side. Again, a great thing if you've got limited shoulder mobility. It kind of creates a little bit more space for. Take a breath here. And an exhale. And then another thing we can kind of play with the alignment of our hands and our arms is to maybe have the hands a little bit wider than shoulder distance and turn the fingertips out towards the side here. Another great thing if you've got a little bit limited shoulder mobility here. Okay. So again, this might feel good for you, or you might want to come back to having the fingertips pointing forwards. Lovely, well done. Okay. Now let's think about our shoulders, moving up the arms. So we want to create a little bit of distance between our shoulders and our ears. So naturally, as we reach the arms up towards the sky, our shoulders are going to come up towards our ears. That's a kind of natural thing to happen. So we don't want to be fighting against that too much because that's going to cause kind of a few more issues in our shoulders. But it's just having that little bit of awareness of kind of pushing the ground away, lengthening the neck, creating a little bit of space. And then from here, externally rotating out in the arms. So I'm going to kind of show you the difference between the two things. So from here, I've got my shoulders really high up towards my ears, and I'm kind of like internally rotating here. So internally rotating is kind of, it's a little bit more difficult, it's a little bit more stronger for the arms, and I've got a little bend in my elbows here. A little bend in the elbows is okay, especially if you've got maybe hypermobility here. Now watch what happens as I think about lengthening my neck, shoulders away from the ears and then externally rotating. So it's almost like my heart can kind of drop a little bit more down towards the ground, and I can feel a little bit more activity in my shoulders here so that my shoulders are engaged. So again, have a little bit of a play of bringing the shoulders up towards the ears and then taking them slightly down away, lengthening the neck, Beautiful. And actually, this is a great time to bring awareness to our neck. So give the head a little bit of a shake. Shaking the head, yes. Nodding the head, no, because we want the head to be nice and relaxed here. Okay, take a breath in. Take a breath out. Now let's think about our rib cage. So quite often in Instagram yogis, you'll see this kind of flared out rib cage, torso really pushing back, and we've got this kind of, again, hypermobility in the shoulders. I'm not even sure if I can do it quite right, but you kind of see this exaggerated downward facing dog pose. And all that's doing is putting more kind of pressure on the elbows. You're not relying on the kind of internal support system. You're not relying on the core here. And there's just real no like actual engagement. It's kind of like just hanging out in the flexibility. So again, we want to think about belly towards our thighs. So again, you can keep a little bend in the knees here, especially if you can't bring your heels down towards the mat, which most of us actually can't, especially when we're warming up into it. So think about knitting the rib cage together, but sending tailbone up towards the sky. So keeping a bend in the knees actually is a really great thing to do to keep that awareness of sending your tailbone up towards the sky without flaring out in the rib cage and collapsing down towards our mats. Okay, so again, a little bit of a difference there. With the tailbone is actually quite a tricky thing to be aware of when you are upside down because everything feels out of alignment. So when you are upside down in an inversion, which a downward facing dog still is because your hips are higher than your heart. When you're in a downward facing dog, you want to think about lifting your tailbone up towards the sky. So I'll show you the difference between the two. Here I've got my tailbone really tucked, so my knees are bent, and again I've got my belly towards my thighs, but my tailbone is tucked, so I've got this kind of curve in the spine. Now to untuck the tailbone, I want to think about lifting it towards the sky, still pressing belly back towards the thighs, but notice how I can lift my hips higher here. I'm still not worrying about necessarily bringing my heels towards the ground, but if I were, again, I could think about melting one heel down at a time. But I'm still really thinking about lifting the tailbone up nice and high, belly back to the thighs, and I'm still pushing the ground away through my fingertips. Let's move down to the legs whilst we're here. And for the legs, all I want to do is what I said at the beginning, keep them moving. So very rarely do I ever say in a class to be still in your downward facing dog, only if you want to. I'm always pretty much moving in our downward facing dog to help kind of keep that fluidity, keep that momentum going, rather than kind of feeling stuck and still in this position here. Keep it moving. Okay, let's have one more final breath in our down dog here. One more exhale. Let's inhale, look forwards towards our fingertips, have a little bend in the knees, and start to have this gentle walk towards our hands. I'm aware our wrists and our shoulders might be getting a little bit tired. So take a very gentle walk all the way towards your hands. And again, slow this down. Very often I see in this walk kind of the feet turned out and we kind of plod along here. We want to think about, again, creating space. So if the hands need to come away from the mat here so that we can walk forward, toes pointing forwards, again, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about kind of keeping the hands towards the mat and kind of struggling our way forwards. Take the hands away, and again, heel to toe, coming all the way to the top. Okay, let's have a little bend in the knees. Let's take hold of opposite elbows. Take a little ragdoll here. So gently swaying from side to side, and again, having that kind of release. So you might like to kind of shake off the wrists again here, shake off the shoulders, shake off the head, shake off the neck. Lovely, well done. Okay, let's have one more breath here. One more exhale. Beautiful. Nice deep bend in the knees so the hands can come back down towards the mat. We're going to step or walk it back into a plank. So getting a little bit more awareness of our core. So shoulders over the wrist, pushing the ground away. Make sure you're kind of reaching out through the back of the shoulder blades so the shoulder blades haven't collapsed together. Pushing the ground away, take a breath here. As you exhale, from here, I just want you to think about lifting your hips up towards the sky. Now, some teachers will say that your alignment in your plank, so where your hands and feet are, should be the exact same when you're in your downward facing dog. That might be the case for some people, for some of us, but I don't think it's a case of one size fits all. So I often like to walk my feet in ever so slightly. It's literally just a couple of inches, so I have a little bit more of a base underneath me. If I go from my plank to my downward facing dog, that actually puts a little bit more pressure down through my hands, and I can't send my weight back towards my feet. So I just walk them in, couple of steps, couple of inches, no worries. Now from here, we're actually going to walk towards the back of our mat. So a little bending knees, walk your hands towards your feet, and then start to step your feet towards the wall here. So again, the wall is something I very often bring into our practice to help bring us into alignment and help get us that awareness of where the body is in space. So lifting the heels nice and high, pressing both heels into the wall first of all. Might feel a little bit more strong for the shoulders here, but take a breath. Take an exhale. Now ground down through the right foot. Send left leg up towards the sky, bringing your left ball of the foot against the wall here. Now this is bringing in a little bit more awareness of our three-legged dog. So very often what happens when we lift one leg into the sky is that we roll out into this hip. So we're kind of stacking left hip on top of the right. But what we actually want to do is keep the hips square and keep left toes pointing down towards the mat. Really push the ball of the left foot in towards the wall so that left leg is active. It's almost like you want to push the wall away from you. Take a breath. Take an exhale. Let's gently bring left foot down next to right. Bending both knees, knees down towards the mat. Take a little child's pose here. So we give those shoulders a little bit of a break. So from here, you can either keep the fingertips reaching out in front, or you might want to bring the arms to rest down by your sides. Beautiful. Okay. Take a couple of breaths here. And an exhale. Maybe one more. And then gently bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Push through the hands to rise back up. We're going to come back into our downward facing dog and repeat that three-legged dog on the other side. So again, tucking toes under, finding your heels of the feet meeting the wall, finding this upside down V shape. Grounding down through the left foot, now sending right leg up towards the sky, and again pressing the ball of that right foot into the wall, keeping the hips square. So again, really trying not to be tempted to open that right hip up towards the sky. Right toes point down towards the ground. Push through that right ball of the foot to activate on that right leg. And it's a real deeper stretch here. You can really feel it a lot more. And that's actually going to help work on the flexibility here in this pose. Take an inhale. Take an exhale. Gently bring right foot back down next to left. Inhale here. Exhale, settle the knees down towards the mat. Again, take another little child's pose here. Beautiful. So incorporating a little bit of a break in between those reps. Lovely, well done. Again, let's take 2 more breaths here. One more. Beautiful. Palms of the hands underneath the shoulders, lifting the chest back up. And then from here, let's walk back onto our mats. And we're going to come back into our downward facing dog, but trying to kind of keep in mind all those things we've worked through. So that little checklist, starting with your hands, working your way up the arm, the shoulders, thinking about the rib cage, knitting the rib cage together, lifting tailbone up to the sky, keeping the legs moving, okay? So there's always lots to think about, but that's why we do it in a checklist so we can kind of work in order here. So hands down towards the mat. Let's push down through the fingertips. Again, a little bit of separation in between each fingertip. Tuck the toes under. Bum back towards your heels. Active child's pose. Take a breath. As you exhale, send the bum straight up to the sky. You can keep the knees bent for a moment should you wish. And then we might start to lengthen maybe one leg at a time. Maybe both legs. Beautiful. Okay. So again, work through that checklist. Are you pushing down through your fingertips? Are you pushing down through the base knuckles of the hands? Maybe you want to separate the hands slightly, turn the fingertips out towards the side. Maybe that feels better for your shoulders. Speaking of the shoulders, are they nice and away from my ears, creating that lovely long neck? And is our neck nice and released? Maybe we can shape the head, maybe we can nod the head. Moving down towards our rib cage, knitting the rib cage together, seeing if we can still lift the tailbone up to the sky. Lovely, well done. Moving down towards the legs, keeping them moving. Maybe finding that the heels can come down towards the mat, or maybe they don't today, no worries. Take one more breath here. One more exhale. And then we can gently bend in the knees, bring them all the way down towards the mat. And again, let's take a lovely little child's pose. Beautiful. Forehead down towards the mat. Maybe the arms are down by your sides. Lovely. Well done, everyone. Okay. Take 2 breaths here, maybe. One more breath. And then in your own time, we can slowly start to roll up through the spine, coming to sit on our heels. Fabulous. Well done, everyone. So that concludes our little strengthening downward facing dog practice. I hope you found those tips useful for you. Maybe there's a few things you can incorporate into your own practice using the wall, especially in your 3-legged dog. But yeah, let me know how you got on. Feel free to leave your little comments in the comment section below. Leave me a little like, maybe even subscribe. Of course, I'll see you back next Sunday with another free class for you. See you then. Mwah.